Com.
All right.
And then wait till I see you next time.
Well, it's a story that Showbiz Tonight first broke last week. Charlie Sheen's controversial comments and statements that the government is covering up what really happened on 9/11. Tonight we have an update for you, reaction from Hollywood and from all over the country. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to sit down with Sharon Stone. She's always been very outspoken about her own beliefs. She commended Charlie Sheen for having the guts to speak his mind on this.
I think if that's what he thinks, then he has every right to say that. I think people should say whatever it is that they feel in their heart, and I think it's those who stand up and say their beliefs and challenge them in the face of authority that allows people to investigate and look at what's happening. I think you have to be brave enough to say how you feel and stand in the face of authority and say it. That's why we have freedom of speech.
Response here at Showbiz Tonight, absolutely overwhelming. The emails continue to flood in. They were coming in all weekend long. We were asking the question, Charlie Sheen speaks out. Do you agree there is a government cover-up of 9/11? More than 53,000 of you voted in an online poll. You're looking at the results right there. 83% of you agreed and said yes. 17% of you said no. Among the many emails we received and continue to receive on the subject, we heard from Sunny in California who wrote, I'm so proud of Charlie Sheen for saying what so many of us are aware of. It is time to get the truth out there. We also heard from Kathy in Michigan who writes, I am frightened that people actually agree with Mr. Sheen. The reality of 9/11 was seen on live national television. Kathy definitely in the minority among the emails we've received. And we're going to be reading some more of your thoughts on Charlie Sheen's statements coming up a bit later in tonight's show.
If you look at the absurdities of this story, we're given 19 patsies, a lot of them basket cases, a lot of them very low-grade subjects, a lot of people who would have difficulty even getting through a normal day without some kind of support, right? Some of them couldn't get a driver's license probably in any state except possibly New Jersey. So they're very low-grade subjects, and we're told that these 19 patsies were able to carry out these spectacular feats. The fact that they lived on military bases and were trained on military bases and were, I believe, reporting to terrorist controllers and case officers inside something like the Able Danger organization. You've also got the fact then of 1 hour and 45 minutes with no air defense. You've got the fact that the buildings had to come down through controlled demolition. It's a physical anomaly, as Professor Jones has said. It's clear also that there's no Boeing aircraft at the Pentagon, but rather something much more like a cruise missile. And finally, in Shanksville, the airplane has obviously been destroyed in midair, probably shot down, probably blown up in this way. There's also another level. This myth is absurd. It is intellectually and morally degrading to believe it. It is a myth of fascist Hitlerian proportions. The Nazis, we don't want to eat our own clock with applause. I appeal to people to save it for the end, because otherwise we're not going to get the television time that we've been fighting for. The Nazis talked about the myth of the 20th century as nationalism and chauvinism. Terrorism is now the myth of the 21st century. We're told that the purpose of the United States for the entire foreseeable future is the war on terror and nothing but. That's no future for the United States or for the world. It is a racist and warmongering myth. And if you believe it, you will share in the degradation of the ruling elite of this country, who have, I think, they're headed for a tremendous crash and dead end. The most important thing is that the 9/11 myth is, of course, the premise and the root of the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war and the coming attack on Iran. I left Washington a couple of days ago. Washington is gripped by a war psychosis. Preparations are virtually complete for the nuclear attack on Iran based on absolutely nothing. We've got prestigious figures from the Clinton administration, Secretary Perry, calling for a preemptive attack on North Korea. And perhaps the scariest of all, the Lieber and Press article in Foreign Affairs in the March-April issue, talking about a first strike against the thermonuclear forces of Russia and or China. 3 paths leading to World War III, the incineration of this planet, all of them presided over by a group I can only call the neocon fascist madmen, the Strangeloves, the people who have got to be driven out of public life. Now, the basis of their power is the 9/11 myth. We are now in a race against time. Cheney and Bush have run up against a brick wall in the United Nations. They need an outside event. The Cheney Doctrine calls for the nuclear attack on Iran in the wake of a new fake 9/11 or new fake Gulf of Tonkin. That is now what is being prepared. They want something to unblock this situation, perhaps something in Europe under the aegis of the World Cup soccer games, to stampede Europe into this war against Iran on the side of the U.S. So therefore, the task of our movement, as I see it, is to educate the U.S. and world populations to the following point. If weapons of mass destruction go off anywhere in the world, please don't think Bin Laden, the cave, Afghanistan, Pashtunistan, or some other myth-drenched region. Please don't think it's Iran or Hezbollah. They're not that stupid. You've got to look to Cheney's office, Cheney's backers, Cheney's controllers, the neocon war party, and above all, the invisible government, the people with the technical ability to bring these things about. So I think this is our task, to educate the people to the point where the weapon of terrorism, which the oligarchy, the invisible government proposed to use to organize this society, we must take that weapon and break it before their faces, deprive them of the ability to stampede and manipulate hundreds of millions of people using these cynically planned terrorist events of the synthetic terrorist type. And I think that's what our movement has to do.
I'm Charlie Sheen and his 9/11 conspiracy theories. We've been all over this story. Sheen's suggestion that the government may be covering up what really happened on September 11th. Sheen was on the Alex Jones radio show again today talking about it, and just this week, New York Magazine is out with a story on all of the 9/11 conspiracy theories that are floating out there. It's called The Ground Zero Grassy Knoll. Contributing editor Mark Jacobson wrote the piece. Mark's joining us live on Showbiz Tonight. Mark, thanks for stopping in.
No problem.
It's quite an explosion that has happened here this week as a result of Charlie Sheen's comments on this radio show on Monday. You started working on this story a few months back. People were really talking about this.
Well, not the people that are interested in it were talking about it, but everybody else thought I was out of my mind.
So do you think now that you have a big Hollywood star who is taking an undeniable risk by coming forward, do you think this is going to give it legs and suddenly people are really going to start paying it more attention?
I think it would be better if it was Martin Sheen rather than Charlie Sheen, because he's the president, right? But
sometimes we wish.
Well, you know, I mean, it's just one of those kind of things where you do this work and nobody really cares, but then Charlie Sheen is interested, so then everybody's interested, and that's fine. You know, I think obviously this material needs to be looked at again, because there's been a lot of problems with the 9/11 Commission report. People feel it's not adequate. Most of the people that lost people during that time feel it's not adequate, and it's just, I think we're living in a truth vacuum, in a sense, that anytime there's a truth vacuum, these ideas, because people are smart, they put 2 and 2 together. Sometimes they get 5, sometimes they get 12, right. But sometimes they get 11, like 9/11, but sometimes they get 4. And the thing is that if you have a situation where the so-called facts are covered up, and aggressively covered up, then you're going to get these conspiracy theories.
And it has happened throughout history. And credibility is an important fact here. Charlie Sheen really did apparently do his homework. He does know a lot about it. But of course, people are now going after him because of his sordid path. I want you to listen to what he had to say about that on the radio today.
I am an American citizen that loves my country. And as a citizen, with my passion for this great country, I demand that I be challenged on the facts, not on immature behavior from 20 years ago. That if they continue to attack me personally, it only gives credence to our side of the argument.
So what do you think about that? Do you think that his credibility really is at stake here, or is that going to backfire on people who are? It's kind of like apples and oranges to me.
It doesn't have anything to do with each other. You know, it's just like, so he was an ardent customer of Heidi Fleiss. I mean, I can't see how that affects his ability to analyze this material.
People who are smart enough, I think, to think about, okay, if he's coming forward with legitimate points, then why should we worry about what his past was?
I think it's just stupid.
The students do need to know that the clear majority of the world's Muslims believe that 9/11 was an inside job. They don't accept the official story.
The official story, meaning the 9/11 Commission